One of the most hyped races in Formula One history. How does the Formula One Las Vegas Grand Prix benefit Las Vegas? That's up for debate this week on Nevada Week.
Support for Nevada Week is provided by Senator William H. Hernstedt.
Welcome to Nevada Week. I'm Amber Renee Dixon. For the first time in more than 40 years, Formula One is back in Las Vegas. Unlike the races here in the early 80s, though, which took place primarily in the parking lot of Caesar's Palace during the day, this race goes down the iconic Las Vegas Strip at night. It's 50 laps on a 3.8-mile course. Months of construction and road work have made it possible, and following its development ever since the race was announced in March of 2022 have been Rick Velada, assistant business editor at the Las Vegas Review-Journal, Alan Snell, publisher of LVSportsBiz.com, Mikhail Miranda, Formula One betting expert at VSiN, and John Katsalamidis, columnist at the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Gentlemen, welcome. We are going to talk about the race itself because there are unique aspects that Mikhail is going to tell us about. But I want to start with a broad question of whether the Las Vegas Grand Prix is good for Southern Nevada. Can I start with you, Rick?
I think initially the idea was that this is going to be something that's going to be fantastic for Southern Nevada because they're bringing in an audience of international guests that really have been low in the past few years because of COVID-19. But as things have progressed and some of the details of the race have come out, maybe there's not quite as much enthusiasm for it as there was in the past because of the effect that it's had on local residents and local business people.
Those impacts being, Alan?
Well, I think bringing up the word debate is kind of a polite way of what we've seen, because we've seen locals be, I think, quite angry about the impact and disruptions at all the improvements and road work, and basically you're building a linear stadium along nearly 4 miles of public right-of-way. So the public officials, Clark County commissioners who brought this and approved this project, will have to answer a very simple question, and that is, are the economic benefits that are still up to debate, and we'll see, they'll roll in the next few months in terms of sales tax revenue and hotel occupancy rates and such. We'll see if all those numbers are worth the kind of disruption and really difficult commutes and kind of misery by some of the workers who have to work along this really high-profile corridor.
Johnny Katz, good for Las Vegas.
Well, I will tell you that where I live in the entertainment industry especially, it has not been an economic boom by any stretch of the imagination. This week and in the run-up to the show, I've had Ross Mollison, who's got 3 productions in Las Vegas, including Absinthe, which is one of the biggest sellers in the city, say he's had his worst week ever this week. And that is not uncommon among people who put on shows. So somehow this economic impact is, those losses are going to have to be offset. This is happening in entertainment. This is happening in restaurants. We've had coverage of that too. Our friends at, for example, Batista's, a legendary restaurant, have been telling us, everybody, that they've had 100 cancellations a night because of F1. So when the money rolls in, I'd like to see some way to explain to the people who have been putting on shows and running restaurants how they're going to benefit over time. We need to have that conversation after F1.
Yeah, Katz, I hope you don't mind, I just call you Katz for the sake.
All right, you just
Johnny
did it.
Katz.
But I think you've raised a good point. I think you listed some of the shows that went black during the week and dark. And what's interesting about these big billion-dollar numbers that are being thrown about, that's been thrown around for the last several months, really, is that how will the losses be calculated in the bottom line net income? I'm still waiting to see that number come out in the wash, because there's also, keep in mind, what about all the lost hours, people in traffic, people who can get to work, they're still struggling to get to work this week. How will those losses be calculated in the net income from this big event?
And you're right, there have been varying reports of the economic impact. 1.7 billion from some organizers, 1.3 billion from the LVCVA. Mikhail, Tell me what you think about, is this good for Southern Nevada?
I think it is. There's been a lot of talk about wanting to come back to Vegas ever since Austin, and since the Netflix series Drive to Survive. It blew up during COVID and everyone got into this, and it was a great time to enjoy a great show. But as we were going and they said it's going to come to Vegas, I'm like, yes, let's get back here. Let's go to and have a couple races here. But the fact that it's come so soon, I think causes a bit of an issue for me. I think they needed to wait a little bit, because now that we're on the second year of the new technical directives, Max
Explain
Verstappen,
how that works. New technical regulations, right?
Yeah, so it's basically the FIA and Formula One, they get together, they try to get closer racing. So they go and they say, all right, the car has to be designed this way. So the new design is to reduce any disturbing wake, which is the air coming off the car in front of you. They try to reduce that so the cars behind can follow you much closer. So it did bring everything closer, but now teams in the second year have regressed at the start of the season. And you saw Max Verstappen and Red Bull absolutely dominate the rest of the season. And so now that we're closer to the penultimate race and getting to the end of the season, it's like, what's the point of coming to Vegas and any of the races since Max wrapped up the championship?
Right.
There was no closer racing at all this season. And I felt like when you get to the engine regulations in 26, that would restart everything for all the teams. So it's going to be much closer. And if Vegas took it back then to 2026, it would have been much more fun to watch it as a fan, as a bettor, and just everyone in Vegas, because they would have had time to prepare for this. But I know that we have a lot more sports come into Vegas, so that might have been a clash there. But I think if they'd waited, they could have capitalized a bit more and give businesses some time to prepare for it.
That as well, and
Really
better
good
plans
point.
around
It
construction.
feels exhibitionist, exhibition-like, this
Yeah.
event to me, right? I mean, I don't follow the circuit, only recently, but it feels like this is what an F1 race would look like, and if it were, performed in Las Vegas.
They're trying to be a lot more performative rather than being racers and drivers and being Formula
Well,
One.
that's a point brought up by Max. I mean,
Yeah.
talking about the show, and quite frankly, it seems like every sports event now has to have this bigger than life kind of veneer to it. You saw it with the Vegas Golden Knights. The Raiders have their Showtime shtick, and obviously F1 is putting on a show that's kind of wrapped around a race.
And then, but then the other thing, part of it too, is that a lot of local people really have not got much of an idea of what F1 looks like. And this will be something new to expose the local audience to. However, it's very difficult for some of the local audience to actually see this in person because of the prohibitive
Well, what's
prices.
interesting about that, Rick, is that the Las Vegas Grand Prix had a representative actually issue a statement saying, if you don't have a ticket and you're not directly involved, it's a good idea to stay away from the Strip corridor. I mean, it's almost acknowledging that. To your point, Rick, those folks are not going to see it. They're not going to eyewitness it. Last night, for example, was the big super duper drone show and the fireworks.
The grand opening ceremony.
Right, and it was rainy and drizzly, so I'm sure a lot of locals kind of stayed away. But to your point, not too many locals have really
I remember
experienced
when they
this.
first started talking about this, a lot of people asked me about what was going to happen, and I said, well, it's still early, but they were all excited about, oh, this is going to be on a public street, so we'll just be able to walk on the sidewalks and watch it. But of course, that's not happening.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
They had some PR stumbles. I thought that $200 ticket that they were hyping for the locals actually was not a ticket to the Saturday night race. I think it was for
For the
Thursday and
practice
Friday. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I know that ticked off a lot of locals because they felt they were misled.
Yeah, there was a lot of things going on from the PR point, because every time they mentioned Vegas, all they said was on the streets of Vegas, down the strip. I go, a race is not just one strip. There's corners and everything. And the fact that they chose to do a street race also was concerning to me. The original plan that I heard from rumors from people in F1 was that they wanted to build an actual F1 track out here. That was the plan. But to do that, you have to go through the FIA, and the track has to be approved by them. To circumnavigate that, you get a street race. So they had the talks last year, and that's what the race is on this year. Where if it was a track race, you had the talks last year, you wait till 26 to get the race on. So there was a lot of things going on with tracks and having to get their contracts up and renewed. We lost France this year. I think that's a big Grand Prix that just got taken off and Vegas is on. So I don't like that fact. They have to go through the certain steps and get a good race on, because Vegas has been hyped up so much, and if it does not live up to the standard, what happens as a financial incentive? No one wants to come back here, because if it's that expensive, tickets will drop down. But again, it doesn't matter if the tickets drop down, it's just not fun to be here.
Which they have dropped down, as have hotel rates.
Hotel rates also.
Well, Mikhail, you brought up a good point about how the Strip has been kind of the star of the show, yet the public has no access to it. But something that locals will recognize is that the parallel road Koval Lane actually is an important kind of secondary spine used by a lot of hotel workers, a lot of entertainment people. It's a key transportation corridor. Koval was actually going to be closed for a whole week even after the race. I believe it's November 25th when they're going to even reopen Koval, which obviously has been taken over as part of the literal venue for this event. But again, that's just another little thing that is irritating locals, where even after the race, it's going to be weeks. I think Steve Hill at the LVCVA mentioned that, it was going to be another 6 to 8 weeks after the race until things get back to normal on the Strip. That'll be about, 3-4 months of time that the rhythms of everyday life has been disrupted.
And I'm wondering what the National Finals Rodeo people think about that, because they're trying to move in and get some publicity before their event.
That's my
which
dream
is in early
mashup, by the
December.
way, Rick, is NFR and F1 brought together.
What a unique combo of a crowd, huh?
An F1 sponsored cowboy in the But I will tell you, that on this teardown thing, I'm looking at that as much as anything too. Because I was joking with the folks at MGM Resorts International about the Bellagio Fountain Club. They want to take that down by the holidays. They want to have that thing completely out. And I was saying, you might want to open that up to some volunteers from Las Vegas to help you take that down, because I think a lot of people would be there to roll it out and help expedite the process. But they're going to store it, at the Cosmopolitan, at the old employee parking garage there, and put that away. And then they're saying that they can just snap it together and put it back next year. So, they're preparing already for next year. But everybody's over it.
Is it going to be
Everybody's
easier
over it.
next year? Because of
Should
the
be. It
infrastructure
has to
that's
be.
You
been
would
put?
think. You would think.
The thing that comes down to for street races is that if they have to repave the tracks, that's
How
gonna-
often?
I hope they don't do that often, because the whole point of a street race is to get the realism from the street itself. If you're paving it, then you're just having another track down. Just make it your own
I
track.
heard 5 years they'd have to do this extensive work again after the 5-year mark.
Right, but keep in
Between 3
mind-
and 5 years.
Keep in mind, F1 is asking Clark County for $40 million toward the repaving job. That's also been a spur under the crop for the locals as well.
What do we know about when that will be decided, whether Clark
Well,
County is
Jim
paying
Gibson
that?
had kind of a soupy explanation for this. It was kind of at a press conference kind of thing with Metro Police, and he basically said the bottom line is they wanted to negotiate this thing after the race, which I think is a good thing. Like, don't even bring it up during race week, and just do the negotiations later. I will say people will be very upset if Clark County is on the hook for $40 million after being put through the ringer for the last 2 to 3 months.
Yeah.
After being promised a windfall to begin with.
Right. Well, help me understand this, Rick, because the CEO of the LVCVA reportedly said the race is going to bring in about $100 million in tax revenue. But you reported in April that the LVCVA is projecting flat tax revenue for the 2023-2024 fiscal year.
Well, it's because of some of the other losses, or not losses, but declines in other revenues in the past. This is kind of a makeup situation. So even though this particular race should benefit to a great extent, and I'm thinking not just because room taxes are going to be through the roof with some of the average daily room rates that are in place, but also we're anticipating that the gaming numbers are going to be up. We won't know those answers until like the end of December. So once we see that, then maybe we'll have a better assessment of just exactly where the tax revenue is going to go.
Okay. So let's talk about the race itself a little bit. Mikhail, what excites you about it? Because as you mentioned, the championship has already been crowned. So what is there to watch?
So a lot of people don't know that just because the championship is wrapped up doesn't mean there aren't fights going on. Where you finish in the Constructors' Championship means a great deal to the constructors. It's tens of millions of dollars for next year's project. So Mercedes, McLaren, Ferrari, Aston Martin are still fighting for positions from 2 to 5. That is a great championship fight right there, because McLaren and Mercedes said that at the beginning of the year their car wasn't great. Now they've turned that around. McLaren more so than Mercedes, and you're seeing the fights now coming back. Where they finish in the championship could be crucial to how they design next year's car, which could mean closer fighting against Red Bull next year, or further fighting from Red Bull. Or maybe Red Bull doesn't fight at all and it's going to be Ferrari, Mercedes. All this makes a great deal for fighting and watching the race. So you're not really watching who's going to win the race. You're watching for who finishes where now. You're just looking at the rest of the grid. Everyone's forgotten about Max. Like, Max? No, please don't. Now it's like, but who's the next name that you know? Lewis Hamilton. It's a great name. Daniel Ricciardo. These are big names in Formula One. You're going to be watching them a lot closely than Red Bull and Max Verstappen.
But I'm curious if Nevada people or Nevada sports fans even know these names or care about these names. This is largely a European crowd that's going to be really intensely interested in this, I would think.
I think the thing that they didn't really get to around is they wanted an American team. They do have one. Haas is an American team. Gene Haas from NASCAR has a Formula One team. But they have no American drivers in this American team. And the American driver is Logan Sargent at Williams. They've done to get him up there and get some fame on his name. But his teammate Alex Albon has taken the light from him because of how good he's performed this year. And Logan, in comparison, has not done as well. So I think when you put an American team, an American driver, you have this all-American thing. And it makes you want to watch as an American fan. You're like, oh, okay, I want to see what America can do in a European sport now. That makes people here, I believe, want to watch the race. But when you don't have that all-American, it's like, now I'll focus on football or I'll focus on something else.
And I also think about the start time of this race. It is catered for the European audience, correct? So how well do you think this Grand Prix is doing in reaching the U.S. fan base as it has claimed it's been wanting to do?
On the East Coast hubs, you know, you're talking about a race that's going to start 1 a.m. in the morning on Sunday. It's a big, you know, to me, it's a big gamble by Formula One. They have planted the flag in the ground with this incredible building. I mean, it's a building that they say will be used for corporate parties and entertainment purposes during the year. And to me, it'll be an interesting showdown between our two really high-powered buildings. You have Raider Stadium, which has a lot of events. They have a lot of catered events, a lot of corporate things going on. And this building, I mean, again, another top shelf, upscale
You're talking about
venue.
the pit building.
And the pit building. So, and it was expensive, and they've invested, what, $500 million in this. So this is, and they're looking, I think, to cultivate an American fan base and get some, you know, get some fans coming to, you know, they also have Austin and Miami. So it's interesting that I believe, is there another continent with 3 races in F1? I mean,
no, they travel all over.
Yeah, so they're counting on being here for at least 10 years for sure.
Right.
They want, so their contract right now is for 5 years, but hopefully to extend to 10. I'm not going to lie to you, I hope they don't do that. I hope they take a break for about a year or so. That way they can focus, okay, what do we want F1 in Vegas to look like? Right now, all they wanted was F1 to come to Vegas. Now that it's here, you're going to take a look at the books. There's going to be a lot of scrutiny from people here in Vegas because they have not been happy, as we've all said. Like, there's nothing happy for residents of Vegas. Having this race at night, that's when a lot of parties and people come in. So now you've taken access to all of those as well, like the nightclubs and everything. That's gone away as well.
I hear that a lot, by the way. I heard it last night on the Strip. We want this during the day if they're going to do it now and upset.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
That would have
Why
helped.
though?
Because our
nightclubs-
city runs its hospitality and entertainment at night. You know, you could lead into that with the race and then spill that audience into the clubs and into the shows. Right now, they're sitting on those schedules, and that's what's causing the problem. shows and well, I'll just say the shows and even the headliners are having to move either off or during matinees, and that's when you're talking about trying to hit a 50% capacity, and that's what they're saying. We're going for 50% because of this race. That's no place to be. You can't really make money that way. So that's another. I'm just wondering about the nuanced argument about the series, about F1. You know, that's not the conversation we're having here in Las Vegas about who's, you know, going to finish where. Are we rooting for, you know, are we looking at who's going to finish third? The conversation is going to be, is this thing worth it in the first place? You know, let's get that established. I would love to see, it's almost like a political campaign, like a primary season. Nevada to move up in the process, you know, and be more relevant early rather than at the end.
Well, let's remember why they stuck it in the week that it is. That is because it's kind of a slow week. It was the week before Thanksgiving. If they could mesh the schedule with F1, then this would be good for everybody. Right. But the fact is they want to keep this going on a regular basis in that week before, because there's been really nothing else on the calendar.
Well, I think when
that's
you say
been relevant.
When you say they, Rick, I think you're talking about the hotel,
correct,
hospitality industry, because I don't think the locals are into it, but I mean the hotels, like you said, it's coming at a time that's traditionally slow, and the argumentation has been very reminiscent of National Finals Rodeo, you know, in the second week of December, same concept.
Right, that it's bringing tourism at a time when it's traditionally, historically low.
Exactly.
Whatever happened with the licensing fees that organizers wanted the restaurants and clubs with a view of the race
Another
to pay?
another horrible public relations stumble. You know, a lot of people were ticked off, and that went away, I think, after the bad PR. Again, just not a good way of endearing yourself in your new host community.
What were you going to say, Johnny Katz?
I'm with you. It was a PR blunder, but I haven't spoken to anybody who actually was required to pay it. You know, I haven't myself. I don't know if they're out there, but that was the word out there, and that was once it got out, I think it did roll back.
Yeah,
that
last I read
policy.
from the New York Post is I think they lowered the rates, but the organizers were threatening to put up something to block your view if you didn't pay that.
or shine the lights into the eyes of people who are sitting, you know, trackside. I mean, that was. When I
Like
first
a
heard that, I
simulator.
thought, wait a minute, what are they doing?
Wow. Well, I mean, and that's similar to putting up those view blockers on the pedestrian bridges.
You could sell some sponsorships to eye doctors for that one.
I did try
Well, I
to
don't know
go
about
and look at the positive of these. I'll try to look at it from F1's perspective. Now, the numbers that they projected were they were going to sell out everything. And at the time, it made sense. Like, hey, pay us this fee, or we'll take these spots so that we can make it available to more people, but at lower prices. But I think they underestimated what Thanksgiving means to America. And because of that slow week, because everyone wants this week to be a little bit chill, because next week going, it's football, you're going to be with your family, your brothers and sisters that annoy you, your mother-in-laws, and everything else that comes along that. So you're going to be in that high-stress environment, and you just want to enjoy football. You don't want to enjoy anything before that. This is adding the stress before you even get there. And it's just like, how do I get to work? It's not what am I going to happen at work, it's how do I get there? And I don't think F1 took that into consideration. Like, maybe it's a slow week, let's put this in here, but there's also the people's mentality of what they want to do. Again, people don't want to come to Vegas during Thanksgiving, they want to be with their families.
Yeah.
So just because coming out here to watch a race and fly back doesn't make that much sense, especially when the prices are this high.
Or astronomical. And I think organizers have said, you know, next year we'll probably make more general admission tickets available. So much that we can talk about. I think we only have a few minutes left, though. I'm interested in what you all think about the investment that F1 continues to claim it's making in Las Vegas. To their credit, they're going to be giving $25 million to the Clark County School District to develop a STEM program surrounding this sport, the science and technology involved in it. They donated 1 million meals to the 3 Square Food Bank. Any thoughts on when they say we are investing in this community, how much do you think they really are?
I think they really are. It's just, you know, this is again an area of public relations that they need to boost a little bit more, because you're right. A lot of people don't even know about this, but yeah, any time an organization, NFL for example, comes in and puts a lot of effort and money into programs that are important to people locally, it's a good thing, right? It's going to be something that's going to benefit everybody.
That's what the Raiders and Golden Knights have done a very good job, especially the Raiders when they laid the groundwork when they were moving here. They made sure to do their community outreach and tell us what they were doing and where they were going. You know, classically, Mark Davis was on the board of the Cleveland Clinic before he even visited the facility. I'd like to see more of a listing and an accounting of that from F1. I'd like to see them and, you know, support the Cleveland Clinic, the Smith Center, our arts community, Nevada Ballet Theater, the Philharmonic, you know, things like that, Las Vegas Academy for that matter. You know, there's a whole list, a whole laundry list of areas that they could spend a lot of that money for charity. You know, I mean, you know, call me, I'll tell you where you can go with it.
I will say that, you know, since you brought up the Golden Knights versus the Raiders and also F1, what we've seen is what happens when Las Vegas assumes ownership of
We've got about 15 seconds left.
When they assume ownership of the product, it works out so much better. When F1 comes in, when the Raiders come in, it's such a hard lift. It's such, you're moving up a hill to try to get people on board.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for all of your perspectives, and thank you for watching. For any of the resources discussed, go to vegaspbs.org/Nevada Week, and I'll see you next week on Nevada Week.